record, I'm done trying to make y'all comfortable. For the record, you ain't trying to grow, then it's done for you. For the record, lab on me going all the way. For the record, ain't trying to link, no time to waste. For the record, for the record, yeah. For the record, yeah. For the record, yeah.
It's been a long time, man. It feels like I have not been a part of this show for a very long time. My name is Dane, aka Dane Ramoon. That's actually my government name. That's not an AKA. But welcome to the Homeland Daily. In reality, this would have been episode 76, but now you are locked into, of course, episode 75, because last week, unfortunately, we had some technical difficulties and we could not perform the show. So we want to thank you for being a part of this show, man. We appreciate you where we talk about health, politics, and always pushing the culture forward, entertainment, and we just try to get our entertainers. I was actually earlier, guys, trying to play a little bit of Josh Pearl's new singles, I like to refer to it. Everything on the album is a single. So big up to Josh Pearl. I have so much love and respect for you, man. Congratulations, bro. You did it. You did it, bro. You said you were going to do the best album, and you were right. Let me introduce the panel, my show, my family, my friends, my brethrens. Give it up for the first one I would like to introduce to the show. No stranger, filmmaker, as you can see, beauty queen also. Did you like ever wake up and just try to be ugly? Have you ever tried to be ugly before?
First of all, this is exactly what I look like when I wake up. Okay. Not even go friend like I did anything. But I'm so happy to be here with you gentlemen. Dane, it's great to have you back. Rico and I missed you, but you know, we were sure to keep you in spirit and in language.
Yeah, thank you, man. When are you coming down to the island? And by the way, you won't be breaking any quarantine to be doing the Homeland Daily.
Well, you know, we've done virtually really well. I don't think there has been any reason for those who have broken quarantine to do so. It's inexcusable. Yep. And to answer your question, a girl does not know. I'm over here just anyway. Probably not even. Rico, you know I broke my anyway. Right. I just keep breaking things.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about
in my government, we need your help. We need your help right now. We need to get Liz Charles back to the islands.
And I really want to be home. I want to be home in time to, you know, vote and do my civic duty, because I really think that is very important for us. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that later in today's show.
I like how you put that out there, that you want to be home to vote, just in case any politicians are listening tonight and want to speed track that. Give it up for
district. You want to name your district, Liz Charles, just in case you have a potential.
Yeah, Georgetown, perhaps.
It is. Continue.
All right, man. Let's give it up for our next panel. Our host, singer-songwriter, producer, and entrepreneur. Give it up for Rico Rolando. What up, Rico?
What's up, guys? You know, I'm super. Today's been a weird day. I don't know if you've been feeling the air recently, but it's just been a weird little flex that's going on today. But I'm super excited for our guests for tonight, and I'm super excited to be back with you guys. It's been another week that we were unable to meet up last week, and I'm just excited to be here and just start this conversation.
Absolutely, man. I'm excited too. We're not going to even hold back, because I would ask you guys, how was your 2 weeks? How was your week? But that's going to take forever. And we got a special show tonight. As you guys know, we are speeding through election. We're getting there, guys. As soon as we look, we're going to be into next year, 2021. And we're going to be thinking about, hey, what does 2021 look for the Cayman Islands? We were all glued to the television when the United States was doing their election. Now, how are we going to present ourselves when it comes to our time to use our voice and to speak up? I hope we put that same energy that we did for people that we weren't voting for, that we do for the Cayman Islands also. We're going to give you an update on how you can get registered to vote, because it is still shocking the amount of young people above the age of 18 that is still not registered to vote. We need your numbers. We need your voice. Most importantly, we need your vote. I say it that way because you are important to us. You are important to this island. You're important to this country. And the more that you sit back and you think that you can't do anything to fix it, and the more it gets worse, all right? Because you are a part of the reason why this country can be fixed. We'll talk about that soon, but let's jump into our entertainment report right now.
It's now time for your entertainment report.
So amazing that this is my life.
Exclusively on the Homeland Daily.
Well, first of all, I just want to thank Mike Tyson and Mr. Jones for not showing up for a fight, but just getting out of the house. I think out of the house was an accomplishment. These guys, listen, Mike Tyson was always my guy. I don't care what nobody say about Mike Tyson. I don't care if he felt like he was hungry tonight when he was it Holyfield's ears off? Yeah. That mattered to me. That was still my guy. He was just hungry. He had an appetite. He didn't eat before the fight and decided that he was hungry and he wanted to take a chew out of Holyfield. It's all good. My concern is that why did people think in 2020 we needed this? Of all the only thing I need to hear is that we have a comet headed to Earth. I never thought in a million years I would see Mike Tyson and Rob. What is his name? Jones? Rob Jones? John? I don't know. But I'm just concerned about the whole entire thing. Like, first of all, I was excited. So I'm not going to lie to anybody, because when I heard that Mike Tyson was going to take on a shark, I was like, okay, all right. Let's go. And then we saw how much weight he lost and how fit he got. So I'm like, this is about to be a fight. But I don't know what I was watching, guys. Maybe you guys can give me your opinion. Tell me what your thoughts are.
I don't know. I mean, everyone was saying that they're watching two uncles fight at the barbecue. is what everyone was saying on Twitter. But my thoughts were the show before that. So obviously it was the basketball player against Jake Paul. And then, he was running a lot of game. He was talking a lot of smack before. The basketball player was like, I don't know who these influencers think they are, that he's just going to come in there and kick my butt and blah, 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 blah. Hold on, guys. I mean, he got knocked out like king.
And that one we'll talk about after, but I'm just very concerned about Mike Tyson, man, because, first of all, I never really believed in your conspiracies about aliens, but after this fight, I truly do believe it, because first of all, that was not Mike Tyson. Give us back our black man, because that wasn't Mike.
First of all, Mike Tyson is not a young man anymore. Okay, like you said, the fact that he showed up, okay, what happens to a person's body, even when you think back to like Ali when he came back like after his prime, I mean, that's a whole different body. It's a whole different, you can't have the same expectation. The mind isn't as sharp, the body isn't as tough, even if he's back in the gym training. We can admire that, but you can't have expectations, man. I
mean, he came back for that check, bro. He made sure that check was good. Shout out Triller right now because they're the main sponsor. But I mean, hey, if it's a big check, why not?
You heard? Did you see Jones when Mike Tyson said they're gonna do this again? You saw Jones? Joe's like, hell no, we ain't doing this again. This ain't happening again. But seeing that we were talking about the fight, let's go on to what Rico was mentioning, these two guys. This was not a fight, by the way, guys. I don't know what it was at all. Everybody has a plan until you get punched. That's what the situation was. I'm gonna break it down for you as easy as possible. I do believe that Nate is actually a fighter. I believe that Nate was nervous, and I believe that Jake Paul got the right punch. I think that's all it is. And Jake I don't know what Jake's issue is, but now he's actually calling out real fighters. Like, he really wants to fight real fighters. Like, this is insane to me. Your thoughts, really quick. What do you guys think? That kind of sums it up.
I mean, it was something to behold. It just like watching how quickly he went down, just watching that motion. It was like, like I felt it.
My thing was with Snoop Dogg in the background. He was going off.
But I don't know, like, why were the two of them fighting? Like,
social media, probably the social media fights.
It was a big social show off, but I think it went a little bit too far. But I will say this though, folks, for all the people that are tuning in right now, if fighting does not work out for Nate, he can sell mattresses. Say $500 on your favorite adjustable mattress. This makes you sleep easy at nights, just like Nate. So special Cyber Tuesday sale. Forget about Cyber Monday. We're still selling this all the way. Knockout deal. All right, man. This is Cass, definitely on the entertainment report. Before we jump into our special guest, give it up. I don't like to say this, by the way, because I am a Christian man, and this is one to tell you, I take my values very seriously. But we do have to name the jackass of the day, and it goes to school. I'm sorry. This has to be put on here because hey, Malroad did it, so we're gonna do it too. I don't want to be as aggressive as Malroad is, so I'm just gonna be my Christian self. I don't understand. I get it. When you meet a black man for the first time, it's very intense. The relationship goes so many different places. And I know you can't keep your hands off of him because he's so fine, and especially he's Caribbean. But that doesn't mean you have to break quarantine. Doesn't mean, I get it. There's so many things working against you. You're in the Cayman Islands. Beaches look good. Men look good. Get what I'm saying? Like, it's okay. We get it. But just do not put us at risk. What do you guys think about the recent breaking of quarantines? And first, before I even ask your opinion, if the government thinks that there's only been 2 breach of quarantine, I'm so sorry for you guys, because trust me, there's been a whole lot. There's just not enough snitches around to talk about what's going on. And I wish there was, but it's not as easy to keep track on everyone as you guys think. And let's just be honest. We can't expect the government to keep a track on everyone, but this makes me a little bit concerned because we've heard of 2 breaches that we know of. How many have we not heard of and has gone under the radar? And that's why I respect the people in Cayman that are still taking precautions like washing hands, putting your hand sanitizer on, and wearing your mask in the supermarket. I don't laugh at these guys and the women when I see them in the supermarkets wearing their masks because, listen, this is serious and it can easily come back to where we were before, like a couple months back. So what do you guys, what's your thoughts on this? Eureka, you can jump in first.
All right. Yeah. So I think my thoughts are just, she's a joker. That's number one. Why would you breach, especially going into a full-on crowd? Yeah, I get it. You can be from America where they don't really appreciate the whole thing that's going on right now, and they don't believe in masks, yada yada yada. But if you're going into someone else's country and all of a sudden you're gonna try to break rule, that's just like you in smuggling drugs. Like a rule is a rule that you're breaking no matter what. So again, the whole $1,000 thing was to me.
She's gonna be fined $10,000,
which is great. That she needs to be fined $10,000, and I'm glad that they actually got to switch that over. But it's just, to me, is if the equipment is not working or if something's going wrong, then I don't think that you should be risking the lives of Caymanians just to fulfill a need of making profit.
Absolutely. What about you, Liz?
Yeah, it's interesting. I did not know that they switched the fine to 10,000 because I was having that conversation with someone about how much the fine should be, and the person was like, the fine should be proportionate to however much that person makes, like the way that they do bail and stuff like that, so that it's prohibitive. So if you're a richer person, that's not going to make a difference to you. You would look at that just like how much you need to pay in order to do what you want to do. Whereas like if you're a poorer person, then that's going to be like an overwhelming amount. And so whatever the fine is should be something that's like by the person, so it's prohibitive. But I think, it's one of those things where I look at the way that different countries are handling the different types of quarantine. My friend is in South Korea right now. South Korea, as you know, from the beginning of COVID has been like on it. They have been like, they are, if you leave, privacy's gone, basically. Privacy's completely gone. If your phone isn't even active for like a certain amount of time, if your phone hasn't moved, they will ping you and check on you because they want to make sure that you didn't just leave your phone somewhere so that you could pretend you were staying in your quarantine space when you really aren't. So they have like a bunch of strict rules. At the end of the day, this is a criminal act. You're endangering public health, and I think it should be treated as such.
Yeah, and I think they're also doing the whole banning thing, right? As well as that you get banned from the country if. Yeah, right. That's what's going on. So I mean, I appreciate that. Big up to Cayman government for still trying to, get this thing controlled, and everyone who's a part of that whole, I guess, workspace and what they have to do, making sure that the public is safe. So, I mean, to me, it's just we can only do so much. But if people are out there breaking quarantine, that's just like them having a big stack of drugs or a big stack of whatever inside their house. Breaking the rule is breaking the rule. So that's just it.
Guys, that's our entertainment report. Thank you so much for tuning in. Rico is right. Liz is right. You're breaking the law here. You got to think twice. If you're coming to our beautiful island, especially if you're coming down here as a resident or someone that has property or someone that's just visiting, you need to get away and you can afford to stay here for an extended time. Respect the rules and the policies as we do when you're going to your country. And we want you to keep that in mind. All right. But without further ado, we are going to introduce our guest for tonight. I'm very excited. He's actually the first future, I would like to speak it into existence, the future politician that has joined our show. A good friend of mine. I've known this guy for a very long time. I can't name out every single credentials, but I'm just proud that he's representing Prospect because that's where I originally grew up on this island. Give it up for Michael Myles. All right, Michael, what's going on, man?
Great.
Michael.
Doing well, man. I'm happy to be here.
Perfect,
Thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely.
I watch your show all the time, so I feel like I know you guys now. I watch you guys online all the time, so I feel like I'm in the groove with you guys.
Perfect. Man. We always like to say, Michael, that thank you for giving us the most important asset, which is your time. We appreciate you, and we can't wait to jump into this interview because we have a lot to discuss. But before I make Liz take things over, I do want to say thank you for always pushing the culture forward because you have done something incredible, which we're going to talk about in the show. I don't want to spill everything out, but you're a man that's known for so many things on this island, and we kind of want to discuss that too. So without further ado, let's start.
Thank you so much for joining us. We really do appreciate it. And you are a part of the fam. If you watch the show, you're a part of the fam, so you should feel at home.
Thank you.
So thank you very much. So why don't you just give us a little bit of your background for those who aren't intimately acquainted with you as Dane is. Tell us a little bit about you and maybe why it is that you are now venturing into politics.
I grew up in Georgetown, single mom, working hard, 3 jobs. We're raising 3 kids. My mother probably did the best thing that I could. I can't thank her enough. She put me in a football camp, and I met a lot of phenomenal people. Winston Chung has been my longtime mentor. He passed away a couple of years ago. Gilla Seymour has been my mentor. He's been my father, my spiritual guide for probably since I was 10 years old. Jocelyn Morgan, and I met a phenomenal amount of people, and it gave me hope. I think for once, I never thought that I'd go to college. I was the first one in my family to go to college. I graduated in '95 with a social work degree. And, one of the things that I've always felt strong in, and it's one of the things that these men have taught me over a very course of my life, is help another. And I believe in that. I breathe that. I live that. So when I went into social work, I started to see our country in a very different way, as what people could say. I was 21 years old, and for the first time I seen poverty, and I was like, no, this isn't Cayman, because I'd never been exposed to that. I know I grew up, my mother would slap me if I say I grew up poor. I didn't grow up poor. I grew up broke. We were broke, right? And we all were. I mean, Dean and I, Dean's family grew up across the road from me. We all shared, we grew up in community, and I loved it. I grew up in central Georgetown where all of my family was. I didn't know what it's like to go hungry or homeless, or I always had family around. So when I went off to college, I was exposed to a whole new different world. I went to Kentucky as well, right? So I was exposed to a whole new culture, and it was a culture shock for me. But when I became a social worker, for the first time, I started to look at Kimon very differently. And I started to ask, why do we have the have-nots? Because I didn't know what that was like until I started to see people not having floors in their house and food to eat, and kids not going to school because they don't have school clothes. And as I got into government, I was young. As I got into government at 21, 22, I started to ask these questions. And I didn't get a lot of answers. And the more I asked senior civil servants, politicians alike, I didn't get a lot of answers. And over the years, I've been in social work and now in education. For the last 10 years of my career, I've been in education. So I spent 6 years in the Ministry of Education working with at-risk children. And then I've just spent another 3.5 years working with Hope Academy. And I've seen now education in its rawest sense.
Mm-hmm.
And the more I learn is the more I got disgusted of we continue to kick the can down the road with education. We've gone through a lot of ministers, senior civil servants, everybody kind of comes in and has this little take on it. First it was we needed better schools. So we spent a lot of money on building schools. And then when education didn't all of a sudden turn around, we said, well, it can't be the schools. It got to be the curriculum. So every year or every 4 years, we change the curriculum because a different minister takes it over and everybody wants to kind of, have their say. So we buy another curriculum and then that doesn't work. And now we're on to the kick of, well, it got to be teacher salaries. So let's pay teachers more. I couldn't, I stayed in the Ministry of Education for 6 years. My first 4 years was brilliant. We were doing a lot of stuff. I took over the skate park. I put in a national after school program because when I came back from the US in 2010, the biggest complaint from a lot of young people and a lot of parents were, I don't know where my child is at 3:00. So I went back to the ministry and I said, listen, we need to do this because it's just the right thing to do. And I grew up I remember growing up in an after school program. I remember at 3:00, I had somewhere to go. I was playing football 6 days a week, and on a Sunday night, the Annex football field was rampacked, right? So that, I grew up in that culture where we didn't have money in football like how they have today, but we had a fan base. I was somebody when I put on that jersey and I walked out on that pitch. People knew my name. So that's how I became known as playing football. I was a goalkeeper, and then I started playing from the time I was 10 years old, I was representing the Camerons, overseas on island. I was playing international games at 10 and 11. I was brought along, Dean's uncles, was my heroes, Lee Ramon, Lloyd Ramon. I grew up under these guys. But as a professional, I became embarrassed because I felt that we were not doing enough. So when I left the ministry in 2017, it was more about being disgusted with the system as it is. And I felt my last 2 years, I felt that I was stealing. I felt like I was getting paid to do a job that I wasn't doing. And I was miserable, but I was I loved my job. I just hated that I was working for the government because I know that progress is slow, but if you know anything about me, I need to be moving forward. I don't have a problem with slow. I don't have a problem with, okay, we don't have funding, but we're going to try to help as much as we can. What I'm not going to accept is that we're going to stay right in one position and call it progress.
Yeah.
So after, in 2016, the late 2016, I was like, it's just I just kept on getting this feeling in my chest that like I'm becoming one of them, you know, like, and you know, Coach Chung always said to me, whenever you feel that you are not contributing, it's just time to move on. So I packed up.
You said a couple minutes ago you're becoming like
You know,
them.
I'm complacent. You know, like I never wanted to become complacent. I never wanted to, you know, punch the clock. You know, I see a lot of people in government, they can just punch the clock and feel good with that. Right? I need to, like, my calling has always been move things forward for our people. Move things forward. I want to help children meet their mark, because I can tell you, growing up in Central, we didn't have a lot. We had each other, but I never thought that I would go to college. I never thought I was smart enough to go until Winston Chung said, and this was in the 80s. I mean, I was 13, 14 years old, and this man was a Jamaican expat who came in here and said, Cayman is going to change. He sat us all down. He said, I had no clue what this man was talking about. And he said, Cayman is going to change. You need to get educated, all of you. And it was like 150 of us on a day, just one day. You know, you would have 150 kids at the annex. Like, you couldn't even see the grass because there were so many kids. There were so many players on that field. We were training at 5 o'clock in the morning. And he said to us, you have to get educated. And I was like, Coach, I'm not college material. You know, he's like, yes, you can do this. And finally, I mean, you know, he said, listen, man, you're good enough. You have the skill. You now need to just focus. I was a BC type kid. I was a guy in the back of the room that kind of joked and played around. And then my last 2 years, he said, listen, man, you need to get this done. And my mother said, you have to now pull this together. So I managed to get my grades to a point where I was given a football scholarship in 19, like right after I graduated. I graduated in 90, like June. It was like July, I got a football scholarship. In January 1st, you know, of 1991, I was on a plane to Kentucky, and I just never looked back, man. But I've always wanted to give back. You know, I mean, like, my passion has always been about how do I ensure that everything that was poured into me is poured out into someone else.
And Michael, so how do you like, what do you think is next for us as Caymanians? Obviously, there's obviously something that's going wrong with the education system. What do you think that we could do in order to advance that? Because again, there's so much people that are unemployed. I don't know if you saw the picture a couple of days ago, but there was so many Caymanians at this, you know, they have the Christmas cleanup that happens every year, and you saw the amount of people that were there, and you saw faces that were very familiar to you. So
absolutely, man.
I mean, how are we going to change this whole system when it comes to, obviously kids are getting out of school way too fast because we don't have jobs for them. We don't have jobs that are available for when kids are coming out of school. How are we going to be able to solve these issues at hand?
Great question, Rico. So here's what I've been saying for 20 years. We cannot wait till a child is 17 or 18 years old to give them the skills that they need. The education system is too traditional for our children. So we have 21st century children and children raised in a tech age, and we're still treating them like I was growing up in 1980 without a computer, in 1985, in 1990, and 95. Those kids have no clue about that era. We have to start treating kids like they're growing up today. That means that those skills have to be provided to them earlier in their careers. So here's what I've said to the Minister of Education. I run a training center. I love what I do because so many young people need the skills that we're offering, but they're getting it when they're 18, 19, 24, 30, 40, 55. They need to get that when they're 12, 13 years old. We need to start to expose our young people at 12 and 13. The moment that they graduate from primary school and they got over to John Gray, Clifton Hunter, Kimbrough High School, those children need to have choices, right? We need to be saying, listen, man, we have 200 jobs in the construction field right now. We have, you know, this type of jobs in the financial sector, and we need to develop our programs based on our economics. We don't link our economic success with our education system. You look at the school system today, no careers that we offer today are offered in the public school system. Why? So when they graduate at 17 years old, a kid don't, like, they have no clue where to start, right?
Yeah.
Then here's another thing that we've done. We've said to all of our children, you know something? Since you can't pass, we're going to lower the standard of the education system. And most people don't actually discuss this. So what we have done, and you can check this out, you can go to the Ministry of Education website and you can pull up the graduation criteria. We've said to a lot of our children, you can't make the grade, so here's what we're going to do. You can now graduate with 5 E's, F's, and G's with 90% attendance and less than 15 days suspension. And we are going to give you a diploma that's not worth the paper that's written on. But as long as you have on a cap and gown and your parents can take some pictures with you, you're successful. So you know what the majority of our children are getting? That level 1 diploma. And they
But
can't.
what I want to ask, and I know you're getting passionate about that right now. I can tell, like education is your benchmark, and I really feel like that's where you want to end up as your ministry. And I really hope, with that passion that you're channeling it out, Michael. I hope that's where you end up. How much daughters do you have? Because there's daughters, right? I just want to.
I have 4 girls.
Let me put them up on the screen just so people know he's not lying. Beautiful girls too, by the way.
Yeah.
So I just want to put them out there. I want to ask you a question. Whose fault is it really that we are accepting these grades from our Caymanian kids? And this is a very in-depth question because a lot of people are saying it's the parents, it's the government, it's the teachers. Who do we blame here? Because I think we're in a society today that we point a lot of fingers, but how do we fix this? I'm not saying you're pointing the fingers.
Yeah.
I just really want to understand, because I know there's a lot of parents. I've seen the numbers of parents, especially in 2020, in the new start of the school term, that have switched their kids to private school, whether they can afford it or not. If they got to work 2 jobs, they're making it happen. So because they don't want to depend on the government school system. And I'm just going to be very honest, because they feel like if they depend on it, nothing's happening. So back to my original question, without going all over the place, whose fault is it that our kids are not being educated?
Great question, Dave. I think it's shared, right? I think education has to start from home, right? Education must start from home. Parents have to hold themselves accountable for what their children are doing. And one of the challenges that I have is when I sit with parents and they're not actually entrenched in their children's education. And kudos to all of those parents that are at PTA sessions, at reporting sessions, help their kids with homework, push their kids forward. I am not here to say every kid needs to go to college, right? I've had the same conversations with my daughters, especially I have 2 adult daughters. So I started talking about where they want to be from the time they were 12, 13 years old. So I knew that one wanted to be in police. I know she wanted to be, in enforcement. I knew the next one wanted to be a chef. So I pushed them into those roles. I didn't push them into being an accountant or law. I push them into something that they feel in their chest every day. What's going to get you up every day? But parents have to hold this thing, guys, to their chest. They have to want more for their children. I see too many parents accepting. I guarantee you ask the average parent today what the standards of education is, they can't tell you, because they only live for the cap and gown. They don't live for the journey. And, Rico, you've asked that question about how we fix this. We have to stop living for the cap and gown. That's going to come eventually. We have to start looking for what's the outcome for that 6 years of high school, right? What's the outcome, not output, because government has outputs that don't go nowhere, right? Government has activity, right? And as long as we have activity, there's not going to be an outcome. So parents have to start to say to themselves, what is it that I want for my child? Is it to do X, Y, and Z?
Michael?
Yep.
I do have a question for you, just because I think, at the start of the conversation, we were talking about the fact that government has a responsibility since they are raising this generation of children. And this generation is very
Right.
different from the past generation. And you spoke a little bit about the fact that that means really, this is a digital generation. So some of what you alluded to kind of sounded like changing the schools, which is what the government has done. And then we got to a little bit of the conversation around aligning the things that people are studying with the economies that are in the island, which sounds like changing the curriculum, which you said the government has also already tried and hasn't, that's something that routinely happens and doesn't actually move the needle. And then coming to the base of it, you're kind of saying, okay, well, at the heart of it, really, it's the parents. But so how do you then, this is a two-part question. How do you then, as someone who wants to be in government, how do you plan on motivating parents to do things differently? And as you said yourself, like, you are, as a parent, encouraging your children not necessarily to become an accountant or a lawyer, but to go after those passions that they were aligned in their hearts. But our economy isn't necessarily built primarily for those professions. Like, there's only going to be a certain number of law enforcement. There's only going to be a certain number of chefs, just because of the size of our market. Whereas because we also, the financial industry services is more scalable because we have overseas clients. And so how do you reconcile, on the one hand, saying we need parents to encourage their children to go after what it is they want, while at the same time saying we need to align the school systems with the economies that are in Cayman, and then being a part of government but holding the responsibility for education to the parenting? How do you balance that? Because it's kind of, you see what I'm saying? It's a little bit everywhere, and I'm trying to get to where you actually plan on starting, and kind of seeing if I can see like a clear through line.
I think it's a combination of both, right? Parents have to want more for their kids. So that's the first thing. Government have to ensure that the education system is more challenging and more flexible, right? If the education system is like this, and this is how it has been, right? We have not really aligned our economic success to really what our education system is. So, for instance, we have a lot of blue collar work, right? Construction, we have the hospitality industry, but none of those programs are in our public schools. Another thing, Liz, of what needs to happen is that we have to start to incentivize young people to get into the fields that they're overlooking. I get tired of hearing politicians, a lot of folks that's on top of the food chain say, well, not everybody can be a lawyer, not everybody can be a doctor, but we've not made it accessible. We look down on automotive technicians, and yet we have 40,000 cars in the country. We look down on construction workers, but we're building on everything in the country, right? We now have an uptick in industry in solar installation, and that is coming. We can't stop it at this point in time. It's the way of the world. But we've not prepared our people to work in those jobs. When I counted, we have just before COVID hit, we had about 31,000 work permits. You know where the majority of those work permits were in? The blue collar fields, the automotive technicians, the construction workers. But you go on the site, you go into any garage, you don't see Caymanians in those places because we have not incentivized that, right? So a lot of our young people want to go in those fields. They're not given the opportunity to actually learn in those fields until they're 16 and 17 years old. So that's how I'm looking about, how do I balance that, right? Yes, parents have to be there to support, and they also have to be there to drive their kids more. For instance, right? You go to PTA sessions, You always find the people who've been there forever, the parents who are going to show up, they're always going to show up, right? How do we incentivize that? We incentivize that by saying to young people, and this is what we did at Hope as well. We incentivize young people to get their parents in there. I am saying to the government on a whole, we have to start looking at education without this. We have to take this down now, and we have to start looking at where our economy is going. And our economy right now is being built around the blue collar worker, not white collar work anymore. The accountants, Cayman is always going to have the accountants, the lawyers, the doctors. I believe at this present time, it's few and far between. When you look at even the young people that are going off on scholarships and so forth, that's not the majority.
Mm-hmm.
The majority of those kids aren't going off. It's the minority. But the majority of the kids that are staying here, they need training. But training should no longer start when they're 18 and 19. Training has to start right now when they are 12, 13, and 14 years old. And that's how we have that balance with parental support. We cannot say that, well, a construction worker isn't worthy when those are the people that are making all the money today. Or
so
the
how
folks
are you
that are
going
in
to
the computer
convince
industry.
parents of that? How are you planning on, if parents are the ones who are speaking down about those careers, and we have a culture that has done that with blue collar work, how, if a child is interested in mechanics, if a child is interested in that kind of work, even in construction, he likes building things with his hands, he's good with, all of that stuff. At the end of the day, if the society is already built around the idea of blue collar work being lower tier, that's something that the child can't go home and their parents say that the parents aren't going to necessarily encourage their child to go that route. So how do you plan on saying, okay, well, in the school system, we're going to encourage, but that child's going to go home and hear that's foolishness.
We have to start to educate parents more. I say to parents, I say to teachers, I say to, admin staff, how often do we run on, whether that's on any sort of media, what are the jobs within the construction or let's go broader, the TVET industry, right? What are those jobs? Like, I get young people coming in saying to me, sir, but I don't want to be a laborer. Okay, but construction is not about being a laborer. Do you know that project managers make $100,000? I've not even heard what a project manager is, because all we've talked about is them being a laborer. Being an automotive technician. I have kids coming in saying, sir, but I just want to pull down an engine. Well, most cars today have a computer in it, right? But if we're not educating them earlier to let them know that and moving that in our country, we don't do that. We don't have community bulletins out there saying we have 14,000 jobs that are held by expats that Caymanians can do. Mm-hmm. Half of that 30,000 work permits, Liz, are jobs that Caymanians could do. That line, Rico, that you see, it happens every year. We spend $500,000 on that program, on this nice program. And I have met with people and I have said, why don't we take that $500,000 a year and train up all of those people and place them in full-time employment? But it's unfortunate, it's not how politics is set up in Cayman. Because how politics is set up in Cayman is you keep people with their hands out. I don't want to be that politician. I want to be the politician that I want to empower you just like I was empowered. We have to start to empower parents to do better, to do more, right? We have to start to encourage lifelong learning. I say to young people all the time, you take one course today, you get some success. Now let's take another course. Like, I run a prison program. I have 13 people in a prison program. 99% of them did not probably graduate high school, but we gave them a little bit of success. They're now they're like 10% now about finishing this course, and they can now smell success. You know what? They're now more energized. They now want to do this. I was just at the prison celebrating with them today because these guys have worked hard. They could stay in bed and hang out all day. They're choosing not to. And I believe that if we can get folks that have been discarded from our society to be inspired and do more, there's no way that I can say to myself that we can't get people in our public school system to do this as well. We can. It's just that we haven't empowered people to do more.
I'm loving your message so far, Michael. It's definitely been a pleasure here on the Homeland Daily. But one of my thoughts is that when it comes down to like unemployment, like what would be one of the first initiatives that you would want to see changed if you were elected?
Here's what we have to do, right? So work right now has every work permit. They've documented every work permit. We have to now say to our unemployed, we have 14,000 jobs that you can do. You're fitting into one of these jobs. Another thing that we need to connect, Rico, is the needs assessment unit can no longer work in isolation. So here's how this system works. You have needs assessment unit, you have work. They all share the same clients. They don't talk to each other. There's no law. If you are unemployed or on welfare, there's no law that says you need to go out there and find a job. We need to change that. If you are able-bodied in the Cayman Islands and you want a job, we are going to train you to get a job. That has to be the message. You are no longer sitting at home taking welfare. So you're going to get training that we're going to pay for, and we're putting you in a job. And work has to be part of that equation right now. The work, the department, and needs assessment. Another thing is that work also have to have a presence on the Education Council. Work doesn't have a presence on the Education Council. The director of work or the deputy director of work has to sit on the Education Council and drive policy when it comes to employment in our public school system. Because that doesn't happen, what does kids know what to actually go and apply for? So we have a lot of kids going off sometimes in doing marketing, but they come back and they can't find a job because we don't have the base of marketing. Or we have kids going off and doing degrees and things. You know, like I had kids go off and do a sociology degree, and no one sat down and said, listen, that's not a degree that you're going to get paid for in the Cayman Islands, right? But if you want to be a teacher, because we need those people, we will fund that. We'll fund that at 100%. We have to start to get more Caymanians in our teaching. So let's fund that at 100%. Why don't we have more people at Harvard or Yale? Like, why is the cap on scholarships to this $25,000 when we have some of the most brilliant young people in our country, right? We have to start to incentivize these things, or we're going to just stay the same.
I'm so glad you mentioned that. I am so glad you mentioned that, man, because I'm going to tell you something. I have a daughter now that has applied for scholarships. And yeah, granted, she has received those scholarships. And that was after trying over and over and over again. And not because of grades, may I add, but because of just simply thinking that what she was studying was not something that they felt was needed to be to be funded. And it hurts me because she's studying to be a surgeon. She's studying to be a doctor. And I, as her dad, that like literally has been around her, seen her passion, seen how much she studied, seen her went her A levels, seen her drive and strive. My daughter hopped on an airplane, did not know if she was going to get a scholarship, did not know if she was going to get funding, did not know where the money was coming from the dorm room. That's how ambitious she was. She jumped on that airplane and just figured it out. The first year was the hardest year for me and her. The reason I'm bringing this up is not to say, hey, my hands is up first. I need my daughter to be taken care of. I'm putting my hands up because I know all these people that are tuned in right now to this show, and there's a lot of people that's coming in and listening to this. If you have a child, a son or a daughter, they're about to face this.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I think our government needs to do. I see the ridiculous things that we spend money on, but I always tell people, you can spend it as much as you want. If you don't have people that are going to protect it, what good is it? You're not training the people to protect our country. We're not going to have Caymanians that are going to be looking out for this country. So I always look at the government and always say, hey, education has to be first.
Yeah.
You can't be concentrating on a port, but the high school ain't finished.
That's it.
Who's going to run the government?
Well, we built the gym before we actually built the school, right? Because they came up with this idea that, well, something, it can attract sports tourism. So let's finish John Gray's gym, right? And then we're going to end up spending another $40 million on John Gray High School. If I was in government and if I was a minister to have something, I'd be looking to buy the best teachers in the world. I'd be looking to invest in teachers. I'd be looking to invest in people who want to switch careers and come into the teaching field to teach our kids how it is to thrive out there. What I find is that our people are surviving, right? In the greatest country in the world. I believe the Cayman's the greatest country in the world, not the US. I believe we're the greatest country in the world. But our people are pushed aside, and every time I pass a Caymanian, every time I have a conversation, it's oh my God, man, I can't make it. I can't, I don't know where this is going to come from. Our people are surviving, and the folks that get on a plane and come here are doing very well.
Yep.
Right. I've had friends who came to Cayman 10 years ago as a server, as a bartender, and own their own business. And yet I have the same Caymanian that can't do that. That is something that we have to change. And that's only going to come when we start pushing people a little harder. If you are not making the grade, we cannot put you in a graduation line. We need to spend the time with you to get you through. And we have to change how we look at this now. Because simply pushing a kid out of school, and trust me, guys, I've seen this happen over and over and over. They are coming. People told me that kids didn't want construction. They didn't want to do, yet I have tripled in size in less than a year.
I think Liz's mic is off. Liz, I think your mic is off.
I was saying that's amazing. If nothing else, I think the mixture of your passion with your experience in education, but mainly your passion, although the knowledge is really the bedrock that allows you to be able to speak on it as clearly as you do. It's very, your proposal is very attractive to me. It feels as though you really are energized to try and work towards education. So like Dane said, I'll reiterate, hopefully if you do get in, that this will end up being the ministry that you are able to work in.
I never really even thought about that. I'm a social worker. My passion is in social work. I just kind of fell into education.
Well, you spent a lot of time
because I know that that's the key.
Education, so I'm gonna go ahead and
I know that education is the key. I've spent my last 10 years of working within it. And trust me, guys, yes. Hope Academy have showed me that education can work. We have a lot of young people who are considered special education needs. And I see these youngsters happy in education because we've let them take education as it is. We've met them where they are.
And there is so much to meeting someone where they are. And
absolutely.
I think that's really your thought around creating a holistic education plan. And so we're at the end of the show, but I'm going to ask you before you go, 20 seconds, last thoughts, go.
I'm in this race because I believe that our country has to change, must change. And I want to be part of that change. And I'm asking people to vote for me because I want to be part of a changed country, not taking us back 30 years, but taking us forward 40 years, 50 years. I appreciate you guys giving me the time. As always, Dean, it's phenomenal. Rico, thanks again. Liz, it was awesome meeting you.
Thank you so much.
Listen, man, we're gonna let Michael go, but Michael, you brought in a lot of people to the show tonight. There's definitely been a lot of attention on you, so I think that's a good thing to say so far. And everybody has positive things to say. I didn't have to turn away any of the messages. I think there's some messages that we didn't get to put on the screen, but I do want to big up Johan Moxham, Carla Lee, James Gary, Tiffany Ebanks, so many others that I can't big up right now. And I apologize if I couldn't put your comments or your question on the screen, but what I will do is share some of it with Michael, and maybe we'll bring him on for a part 2 because it's definitely needed. But Michael, thank you so much for being a part of the show.
It's an honor, guys. Take care. Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right, man. That is the Homeland Daily, our first ever, guys, political talk. I think it was great. I think it was excellent. I think this is going to be very, I think we should do a debate because Michael is running in Prospect, right? So I think we should get Austin Harris and Michael on that panel to discuss, hey, what's your agenda? How do you plan to change things? And how do you think you're a better representative for Prospect? But I have this might be biased to say because I worked with Austin Harris, and he's a great guy. And I've known Michael for a long time. Let me tell you this, man. They both got passion, but Michael just seems to be a rocket ship when it comes to passion. So that makes him extremely dangerous in a sense because he's someone that belongs in office because he really has a heart for this. But what scares me the most with Michael is that he's really one of those guys. I'm not disrespecting other politicians. He really wants a change. Can someone like that survive in politics? I don't know. Maybe that's the next show. We'll discuss that, but we have to end the show now. Thank you so much, guys. We appreciate you. We wish we had time for final thoughts, but we want to make sure that we end the show on time and keep committed to our stream. We'll see you again next week, Tuesday, of course, for episode 76 of the Homeland.
For the record, I'm done trying to make y'all comfortable.